Bien, rebonjour. Merci à ceux d'entre vous qui ont suivi la conférence de presse qui vient de se terminer sur l'Alliance européenne des batteries. Nous allons avoir un midday briefing un peu plus court que d'habitude. En conséquence, je commence avec les annonces pour aujourd'hui, vendredi 12 mars. So first of all, as every Friday, let me start with the President's agenda for next week. On Monday, President von der Leyen will deliver an opening speech at the 2021 Cooperation Days via video conference. On Tuesday, the President will deliver a keynote speech at the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue 2021, again via video conference. Then on Wednesday, she will, of course, chair the college meeting and in the afternoon, chair the steering board of the Recovery and Resilience Task Force. The next day, on Thursday, the President will deliver an opening speech at the European Innovation Council launch ceremony via video conference. And finally, on Friday morning, she will meet the EPP Group Young Members Network, again via video conference. Puis, permettez-moi encore de vous rappeler que les ministres de l'Intérieur se réunissent aujourd'hui pour une réunion informelle par visioconférence à laquelle participe la commissaire Ylva Johansson. La réunion a démarré ce matin avec un débat sur la proposition de directive relative à la résilience des entités critiques. Cet après-midi, les ministres discuteront de la voie à suivre en ce qui concerne le pacte sur la migration et l'asile. Le vice-président Margaritis Schinas rejoindra la réunion pour ce point. Sur l'agenda figurent également des discussions sur le renforcement de la coopération internationale en matière de retour et de réadmission, la coopération entre l'Union européenne et l'Afrique du Nord, l'évaluation Schengen de la Croatie et la situation aux frontières dans le contexte de la pandémie. Une conférence de presse avec la commissaire Johansson aura lieu vers 17h et, comme de coutume, nous vous invitons donc à réserver vos questions liées aux affaires intérieures pour cette conférence de presse. Et avec ceci, nous sommes prêts pour vos questions et je passe la parole à Samuel.
Oui, bonjour Eric. J'ai une question sur les vaccins. J'aimerais savoir si la Commission a demandé à AstraZeneca de fournir aux pays membres de l'Union européenne des doses de vaccins qui sont produites aux États-Unis. Et si c'est le cas, j'aimerais savoir combien. Et j'aimerais aussi savoir si la Commission a demandé à l'administration américaine d'autoriser de telles exportations.
Merci Samuel. Je vais passer la parole à Stéphane sur ces questions. Sur la...
Eric, I'm sorry. Maybe Miriam is in a position to talk about the relationship with the US, right?
Yeah, just on the first question, please.
Sorry, I did not hear the first question. My apologies for this.
Related to the requests that we would have made to AstraZeneca on delivery of doses. Okay, I will answer the question.
I didn't. No, sorry. I'm
Samuel,
really sorry. I didn't hear it. I'm
Samuel,
sorry.
est-ce que tu peux répéter ta question, s'il te plaît?
Oui, ça y est, le micro fonctionne de nouveau. Donc, j'aimerais savoir si vous avez fait une demande directe à AstraZeneca de vous fournir des doses de vaccins fabriquées aux États-Unis qui ne peuvent pas être utilisées en ce moment aux États-Unis vu qu'il n'y a pas d'autorisation. Savoir si vous avez demandé à AstraZeneca de vous en envoyer en Europe pour que les pays membres de l'UE puissent les utiliser. Et si c'est le cas, j'aimerais savoir combien. Et la deuxième question, c'est plus sur les négociations actuelles entre M. Breton et son homologue américain, savoir si l'administration américaine est désormais prête à autoriser de telles exportations.
Bon, je vais répondre aux deux questions de manière très très simple, Samuel. Nous sommes en contact constant. Le commissaire Thierry Breton a encore évoqué des contacts qu'il a avec AstraZeneca en ce moment pour qu'ils tiennent leurs objectifs en matière de livraison de doses tels que prévus dans notre accord avec eux. Nous n'allons pas ici, en salle de presse, vous détailler les demandes spécifiques que nous faisons. Je te rappelle qu'il est de la responsabilité de l'entreprise de s'organiser pour pouvoir nous livrer les doses, quelle que soit la destination, quelle que soit l'origine de ces doses. Bien entendu, nous avons prévu dans le contrat qu'il y ait des usines en Europe afin que l'entreprise soit en mesure de nous fournir les doses nécessaires. Donc ça, c'est la base de notre négociation, de notre discussion avec les entreprises. Mais pour le reste, il revient à l'entreprise de s'organiser pour pouvoir nous fournir des doses. Et en ce qui concerne ta deuxième question, j'ai déjà expliqué ici que nous n'allions pas rentrer dans le détail de nos discussions avec les autorités américaines. Nous travaillons avec nos partenaires américains sur les questions de chaîne de valeur qui sont très souvent transatlantiques en ce qui concerne la production des vaccins, et nous espérons pouvoir faire en sorte que des deux côtés de l'Atlantique, des doses de vaccins soient distribuées en quantité suffisante et selon notre programmation pour mener à bien les campagnes de vaccination. Alors, nous continuons sur le sujet avec Louise.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, Louise, go ahead.
Thanks for the question. It's another one about AstraZeneca. The Danish health authorities yesterday sent out a press statement. Let me just find it. Sorry, it's gone. They said directly that they were informed in a meeting that AstraZeneca expects to deliver only half of the doses up until the end of second quarter for the entire EU. So can you confirm this information, that there's been an announcement from the company that they will deliver only half in the period from now until the end of Q2? Thanks.
I think that you have seen the comment that has been issued by Commissioner Breton on the issues that we have with the efforts that are being made by AstraZeneca to deliver doses. And it is absolutely clear that more efforts are needed for the company to be able to deliver what has been agreed. We're not going to go into specific figures. As you know, we do not do this here in the press room, but it is absolutely clear that supplementary efforts are needed by the company in order to meet its targets. That is where we stand today. Athanasios.
No, it's on something else. I'll take it again later.
Okay, thank you very much, Louis. Stay on the issue of vaccines. Peter. Mic source seems to be wrong, Peter.
The what?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, kids.
Now it's on?
Yes, kids.
Oh, sorry. Okay, good. Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz just held a press conference, and he alleged that there is at the moment a severe misappropriation of actual vaccine deliveries across the EU, indicating that Malta at this pace would be finished vaccinating the whole population by May, whereas Bulgaria could only finish sometime in the fall. And his allegation specifically was that there exists something like a secret bazaar within the steering board, making secret agreements with various producers, and that this might be the cause of this misallocation, misappropriation all across the EU. So can you confirm or deny that such a bazaar exists?
Stefan.
Thank you very much for this question. The steering board is indeed a very important board where the negotiation of the contracts, but also the implementation of the contracts is followed between the different member states. You know that when we are about to sign a contract with a company, one of the important questions is first, will a member state opt out or not? And then secondly, how will we distribute the doses? As you know, the starting point for the Commission is always to have a distribution of the doses on the basis of population-based figures, because the virus strikes the European Union everywhere. But of course, member states may decide to ask less or more of a given vaccine, and this is discussed between the member states. And then it's possible in this context, following the outcome of the discussions between the member states, that a new distribution key is agreed upon with the company, following again agreement and discussions with all the member states. The next step is then the implementation of the contract, which consists in placing purchase orders with these companies. Member states do this directly with the companies, obviously on the basis of what has been agreed between the member states and the Commission in the context of this steering board. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. You have a follow-up.
To be actually proportioned in a way that Malta, let's say, is really finished half a year ahead of Bulgaria. Can this be something that the Commission can be content with?
Thank you. Look, we are happy for member states to be progressing quickly in their vaccination strategies. That is absolutely clear. And of course, we are working with member states in order to ensure that they can all progress in their vaccination campaigns as quickly as possible. There are many variables that come into play. The actual deliveries of vaccines is, of course, a very important dimension, but it's definitely not the only one. Our objective, as you know, is for it concerns the vaccination of 70% of adults by the end of the summer, and that is the objective we are working towards. Tommaso.
Yes, good morning. Tommaso Gallavatti in Kronos, Italy. Thank you for the floor. Just two questions on vaccines, if I may. The first one is on Johnson & Johnson, because the company stated that their aim is to start delivering the vaccines doses starting from the second half of April, which is pretty late, because, for example, Pfizer-BioNTech has started delivering immediately after the approval by the EMA and the Commission. I wonder, and moreover, they didn't give any certainty on the deliveries on the second quarter. I wonder if the Commission is satisfied by the behavior of this company, which seems to be tied to the commitments with the US administration. And the second one is about if I may, about the position adopted by the EU in the WTO, because India and South Africa asked to temporarily suspend the rules on patents, industrial designs and trade secrets on vaccines to allow the production of vaccines. But the EU took another position along with the United States, Great Britain and other countries. I know that it might not be the most effective way to ramp up production, because there is technology transfer and so on. But I just wonder, how can we reconcile this position with the statements repeatedly made by the Commission and the Council that the vaccine should be a public common good? Thank you.
Thank you. On your first question, I will pass the floor to Stéphane, and on the second, on Myriam. I have to tell you that we will need to stop this midday briefing at 1, so I would be extremely grateful if you could keep your questions relatively short. Stéphane, on the first question.
Thank you very much. With regard to Johnson & Johnson deliveries, we have taken note indeed of the statements made by the company in the context of their yesterday's press release, referring to starting of deliveries indeed the second half of the month of April. We will not comment, as we have not done before, on when exactly which deliveries are expected for each company. I can tell you that we are in contact with Johnson & Johnson as much as we're in contact with other vaccine developers to make sure that deliveries of sufficient sufficient doses take place, because indeed we need the vaccines for the vaccination. I can also reiterate what the President referred to already some time ago, the fact that we expect as from April an increase of the deliveries in total, covering all the companies, on average 100 million per month, same for the next month, so that by the end of June we should have, or we expect rather, deliveries of up to 300 million doses. In order to ensure this, we remain in contact with the different vaccine developers, including Johnson & Johnson, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam, on the second question.
So indeed, the European Union is of the view that the problem of access to vaccines will not be solved by waiving the patents. The problems are really linked to the lack of sufficient manufacturing capacity to produce the required quantities. And in this context, we very much welcome the statement of the new Director General of the WTO, Madame Nossi, who has said there should be a third way to broaden access to vaccines through facilitating technology transfer within the framework of multilateral rules. So to encourage research and innovation, while at the same time allowing licensing agreements that help scaling up manufacturing capacities. So we are looking forward to working under her leadership and to promote this collaboration between companies to enhance this technology transfer and this manufacturing capacity. So just to sum up, this collaboration is happening already right now. If there would be problems in this voluntary sharing of technology, we are happy to discuss in the WTO framework what are the means we have within the flexibilities that it allows under TRIPS, which would be the compulsory licenses of patents without the consent of the patent owner.
Thank you. We move to Luis.
Écoutez,
oui, absolument.
Merci. Je voudrais savoir quel est votre message de la Commission, parce qu'en fait, l'AEMA a dit hier que la vaccination d'AstraZeneca est fiable, mais il y a eu certains pays qui ont arrêté la vaccination, des autres comme France ou l'Allemagne qui ont dit qu'ils vont continuer avec la vaccination. Qu'est-ce que vous direz aux pays qui ont arrêté cette vaccination par rapport avec les messages de l'AEMA hier qui a dit que la vaccination avec AstraZeneca c'est fiable? Merci.
Merci Louis. Question pour Stéphane.
Merci beaucoup, Louis. Je pense que je vais tout simplement répéter ce que j'ai dit hier sur ce point. Pour la Commission, ce qui est très important, c'est de suivre une approche scientifique, et ça veut dire, dans ce cas-ci, de suivre l'approche scientifique de nos collègues de l'Agence européenne des médicaments. Donc ça, c'est très important. Nous avons pris note, en effet, du fait que l'EMA a donné un premier avis sur ce point-là. Donc ça, c'est très important. N'oublions cependant pas que les États membres sont responsables de leur politique de vaccination. Ça reste une compétence nationale, et donc les États membres peuvent, pour des raisons nationales, pour des raisons épidémiologiques, pour des raisons liées à la mise en œuvre de leur stratégie de vaccination, décider de suivre une approche plus stricte par rapport au vaccin. Donc ça, c'est une possibilité qui est là. Évidemment, la mise en œuvre des plans de vaccination ne peut pas aller à l'encontre des opinions de l'Agence des médicaments européens. Ce qui est important, c'est que l'agence, qui est la première concernée, je dirais, par ces questions, continue à suivre la situation avec les États membres, avec la société, et donc c'est très important qu'on continue à assurer ce suivi. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Nous passons à Lawrence. And this time I got it right.
Thanks, Eric. You wanted them brief, so let's be clear. Is AstraZeneca a long way short of its goals? Is that what these increased efforts are needed for? And to go back to the US, you said that you're hopeful and that there are conversations going on. Can you just answer very clearly, yes or no? It's not great detail. Have you asked them to help with doses?
On your first question, the answer is yes. On your second question, I'm afraid that we will not go into the details of the conversations. Thank you, Lawrence. Hans.
Yes, thank you. Also, just following up on exactly that same point, I would like to know whether Commission President von der Leyen has spoken to US President Joe Biden about this issue of AstraZeneca doses. Thank you.
No. David.
Oui, merci. Deux questions. Première, est-ce que les 300 millions de doses que vous avez annoncées pour le deuxième trimestre sont doses confirmées ou c'est un objectif? Deuxième question, comment c'est possible que 3,9 millions de doses de Johnson & Johnson ont été exportées à partir des Pays-Bas vers les États-Unis quand la société a en quelque sorte renvoyé de quelques semaines les livraisons à l'Union européenne?
Sur les 300 millions, c'est notre objectif, bien entendu, c'est ce que nous visons à atteindre. Sur la deuxième question, tu sais que notre mécanisme d'autorisation, de transparence et d'autorisation des exportations est rentré en vigueur le 31 janvier ou le 1er février, le 31 janvier. Et il se peut donc tout à fait que des exportations aient eu lieu avant cette date qui font l'objet de ta question. Pour rappel, nous n'interdisons pas l'exportation de doses vers les pays tiers. Nous avons un système en place d'autorisation, mais depuis le 1er février. Naomi.
Thanks, Eric. Naomi O'Leary, Irish Times. The key issue, or a key issue in the shortage of AstraZeneca doses, is the problem in production in Europe. Do you have a timeline by which the factories in Europe should be able to ramp up in a way that the company hoped that they would in order to produce the doses it committed to? Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi, you know, I'm sorry in a way because you're all asking us for extremely precise details of our discussions with the companies. You know, it is a very fluid situation. And we are working with the companies, and in particular with AstraZeneca, in order to address these issues. But we are not going to sketch out a plan here in the press room that sets out exactly the solutions that companies have to implement. It is their responsibility. Let me repeat this. It is their responsibility to deliver. And this is why Commissioner Breton said right here a few minutes ago that he was making this clear to the board of AstraZeneca. It is for the board and the management of the company to come up with solutions. We are trying to make sure that the companies deliver according to our agreements with them. Angela.
Yes, good morning, thank you. My question is about, I remember that 2 months ago, almost 2 months ago, in an official letter to the EU leaders, President Michel talked about the possibility to use the Article 122 of the treaties to react to the big pharma who don't respect the contracts. We were in the middle of the road with AstraZeneca for the cuts in the deliveries. As the problem has not been solved, and Johnson & Johnson seems to, they want to do the same as far as we know. I was wondering whether, is it time, according to you in the Commission, to go back to that, I don't know whether to call it threaten, but anyway, to that way of, to that possibility to put it on the table of the leaders as the situation has not improved since January. Thank you.
Thank you. We are working with the companies in order to ensure that they can deliver the doses to us that are foreseen in the contracts. Clearly, we believe that working with the companies is the best solution in order to get the results that we want to achieve. Now, as you know, faced with a first issue which was related to possible exports of doses produced in Europe and sent to third countries, whilst commitments to the EU were not being complied with, we reacted by introducing the Export Transparency and Authorization mechanism to get the overview that we need. And this is the stage that we are at the moment. And we will continue to work with the companies and explore ways to ensure that we can get to the result that we want. Angelo, a question on vaccines? Oh, climate, sorry. Danielle, question on vaccines?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Je voulais revenir sur la question de mon collègue autrichien au sujet de la conférence de presse du chancelier. Il vient quand même de dire dans cette conférence de presse que selon ses informations, la distribution des vaccins parmi les pays membres ne serait pas équitable. La Commission fait la coordination de cette distribution. Donc, ma question, c'est est-ce que selon vous, cette distribution est équitable? Est-ce que les prorata sont respectés? Ou est-ce qu'il y a des pays qui reçoivent plus que d'autres? Oui, voilà, ça c'est ma question. Merci.
Daniel, merci beaucoup pour ta question. Encore une fois, c'est sur base d'accords entre les États membres qu'il peut y avoir une divergence par rapport au principe de base qui est la distribution pro rata. Ça n'est pas à nous de dire si c'est équitable ou non. Il revient aux États membres, c'est leur prérogative dans le cadre de ces discussions de se mettre d'accord entre eux sur le fait que pour un contrat X avec une entreprise Y, un pays en particulier décide qu'il ne veut pas prendre l'ensemble des doses qui sont prévues pour lui en fonction de sa population. Et à partir de ce moment-là, les doses deviennent disponibles pour une discussion entre les autres États membres. Et ensuite, il y a un accord sur cette nouvelle distribution. Donc, en tout cas, ce qui est clair, c'est que c'est un mécanisme qui se fait entre les États membres et sur base d'un accord entre eux. Daniel, une question de suivi.
Oui, juste le chancelier a aussi mentionné qu'il a des informations sur des accords on the side, à côté, entre entreprises et des pays membres. Est-ce que vous avez de nouvelles informations là-dessus? On en a déjà parlé. Est-ce que vous avez ces informations aussi? Merci.
Merci Daniel. Nous avons déjà répondu à cette question et donc nous n'avons pas de commentaires supplémentaires à faire sur ce sujet. Voilà, il nous reste à peu près 8 minutes, donc je vais clore ce chapitre et nous passons à Athanasios avec sa question. Athanasios, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. It's something completely different. It's about the Green Line in Cyprus. So did the authorities in Cyprus notify you about the construction of the new fencing in the Green Line in the country? And were they obliged to do so?
Thank you. A question for Adalbert.
Actually,
sorry, no. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Vivian. Sorry. No worries. So thanks a lot for the question, Athanasios. What I can tell you is that the Commission has not received a notification from the Republic of Cyprus about the construction of the new fencing or change in its policy in general of the surveillance of the Green Line. And on the second part of the question, I'd like to point you to the Green Line regulation, which provides that in its Article 10 that any change in the policy of the government of the Republic of Cyprus on crossings of persons or goods shall only become effective after the proposed changes have been notified to the Commission and the Commission has not objected to these changes within 1 month, as well as the Article 3 that provides that effective surveillance shall be carried out by the Republic of Cyprus all along the line in such a way as to discourage people from circumventing checks at the crossing points referred to. So that's the situation where we're in, and we are of course looking into the news and the situation on the ground and discussing that with the authorities of Cyprus. Thank you.
You have a follow-up, Athanasios. And apologies, Vivian. I hear fence.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
One more thing. You know, the authorities in Cyprus bring this argument that the other community, the Turkish Cypriot community, is not well equipped to deal with the migration crisis. So I was wondering, are you providing any help to the Turkish Cypriot community to handle this issue? Thanks.
So, Vivian.
This I actually think I'll have to check in more detail and I will come back to you to see, because I know that, of course, we have different assistance programs in place, but to see what they exactly cover, let me check that with our experts and I'll come back to you immediately afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take two last questions today. First one from Angelo on climate change, and the second one from Mose. Angelo.
Yes, thank you. Angelo Di Mambro from ANSA News Agency. Thank you for the floor. John Kerry told the Financial Times he's skeptical about the so-called CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism that the EU wants to establish as a part of the climate laws. Did you discuss this point when he was in Brussels? I mean, you were aware that he is not an enthusiastic supporter of this measure, and what is the reaction? What is your position on this skepticism? Let's say. Thank you.
Thank you. A question for Tim.
Hi, Angelo. Yeah, question for me in the sense that you asked if it came up in the discussions with John Kerry this week when he visited Brussels. I mean, obviously, I can't go into detail about the kind of conversations that were held, but of course, this is one of the topics which did come up in the conversation. You know, the Commission has been very clear from the start on what this proposal is intended to do. It's about preventing the threat of carbon leakage. If the European Union raises its climate standards, we don't want that to cause a situation where industries move to other more polluting jurisdictions. As we've always said, the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, is a tool that if other partners raise their climate ambitions in line with ours, it'll be a tool that we never have to use. But it's something that we're working on. We're looking to put together a proposal which will come in the coming months. But that's all I can say for now on our conversations with Kerry and where we stand with the preparations.
Thank you very much, Tim. So we'll take one last question, and it goes to Mose. Mose, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Eric. This question also linked to climate change. I was present at the previous press conference with Vice President Šefčovič and Commissioner Breton, but I had some problem with the connection because I was doing it in a car outside. So I was very thankful if I could ask a follow-up question about what she said about the battery balance. But among others, you said that. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I do that. Well, it was mentioned that the Commission plans, let's say, to issue guidance or regulation on the sustainability of batteries, which are going to be produced in Europe. And in the coming years, we're talking about a number of so-called mega factories by 2025. So my question is like this. Has the Commission set any goals or indicators on the share, let's say, of renewable energy for the supply chain and the production of such batteries? Because that will very much impact on the electricity which we're going to charge the electric vehicles, and to what extent they will be cleaner and pollute less than gasoline and diesel cars. And that brings me to the related question, if there is an indicator saying on how much should electric vehicles, let's say, pollute less than these other cars in order, say, for Europe to invest in such cars, and also to give economic incentives to consumers. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe your first question definitely for Vivian. The second one, Vivian or perhaps Sonia. Let's see. Vivian.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, indeed, there, Mose, I would like to point you to the proposal that we made last December on the sustainability of batteries, where we say that the batteries do play a key role in achieving the climate neutrality by 2050. And what we need then when it comes to the batteries is better and more performant batteries, which are at the same time also part of our circular economy. And when it comes to the guidelines, we are working indeed on now, well, we are working on two things. From one side, we have the negotiations ongoing on the legislation that we proposed in the Council and in the European Parliament. And this is, of course, a very key deliverable to make sure that we agree on these goals that have been put forward there in December. On the guidelines that you mentioned there, indeed, as we said, the work is ongoing, and as they haven't been finalized yet, we can't go more into details on what will be in there. When it comes to the combustion engines, I do actually believe that would be more for Sonia to answer. Thanks.
Indeed, but Sonia tells me that she has nothing to add at this stage on this issue. So we will see if there's anything to add at a later stage on this. Now, I'm sorry, but as I said, I have exceptionally to stop the midday briefing today at 1 p.m. So I wish you a nice weekend. Of course, we remain available, all of us, for you, both on and off the record, and we will see each other again on Monday here in the press room. Thank you very much.